It's time for Media Meltdowns, and this was always going to be a challenge. CNN has been asked to tell the truth, and the request has come from the only contributor on the leftist network who actually seems to know what is going on in the world, and that is the brilliant Scott Jennings. The rest of them appear to be living in an alternative universe and have no recollection of the many conflicts that Donald Trump has ended in the past 6 months.
But the man has solved 6 or 7 conflicts this year. I think we ought to give him some latitude to operate.
Which 6 or 7?
I'm sorry, are you not watching the
Which
news?
6 or 7?
Well, we just did Azerbaijan, we did Rwanda, we did Israel, Iran.
Israel,
Thailand,
Iran, what
Cambodia.
piece deal did I miss?
Ended the 12-day war.
I mean, so you 6 or 7. I
Are
mean,
you
that's
living on Earth too?
I mean, no, but Rwanda, Azerbaijan, Rwanda, what? What are we talking about?
I mean,
he doesn't know.
No, I mean, the fact is, we still have a country a world that's on fire.
Oh, wow.
And this is the problem with
Casey,
What are you asking me for, Scott?
I'm asking you to come in here and tell people the truth.
The
Donald
truth.
Trump has created a track record this year of helping
President.
settle several conflicts.
So several is different than 6 or 7. So I was letting the party.
First of all, I will
But
say this.
We did see.
I will
Scott,
say
to your
this.
point.
Yeah, not sure how they missed the Israel and Iran conflict and the end of that, because it ended with President Trump taking out Iran's nuclear facility, something that US leaders have been talking about for decades. The experts on CNN seem to be living in a completely different reality, that even the idea of crediting Donald Trump for ending global conflicts is just too much for them. And it might be because they have much more important things to cover, such as pushing COVID booster shots like it's 2021.
Quick question, Meg, before we let you go. When should adults start getting the COVID vaccine booster shots, and when should we start getting the flu shots?
Well, we are waiting on the COVID vaccines for sort of the regulatory go-ahead, and there is still some question about who exactly is going to be eligible and able to get a vaccine. But typically, as we head into the fall and COVID levels are rising nationally, there should be an updated COVID vaccine, especially for people over the age of 65. For flu, we'll also get an updated vaccine, and the recommendation is anytime before Halloween, typically closer into September and October, Wolf.
Good advice, Meg Terrell. Thank you very much.
How anyone is still watching this channel, that is just beyond me. But let's look at how the mainstream media has been covering the developments and significant progress that Donald Trump has been making in pursuing peace with Russia and Ukraine. Almost everywhere you look, the media has been in meltdown mode. Here's part of MSNBC's coverage of Trump's meeting with Putin.
I believe that the humiliation for the United States, the loss of credibility and reputation yesterday in Alaska was much worse than the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Yeah, much worse than Joe Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal, where 13 American service members lost their lives. It's just ridiculous. Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has ripped into the left-wing media for not even trying to hide their efforts to undermine the president as he pursues peace.
All weekend following those historic U.S.-Russia bilateral talks, we listened to clueless pundits on television trying but failing to claim that the president had failed. The so-called experts in the foreign policy establishment, whose record is nothing but endless wars, trillions of wasted taxpayer dollars, and dead Americans, have the nerve to try and lecture President Trump, who has solved 7 global conflicts in 7 months, about peace. This is the same president, by the way, who brokered the Abraham Accords in his first term, on top of more than half a dozen other peace deals this year alone, as I just said.
Joining us now is Alex Stein, host of Blaze TV's Prime Stein with Alex Stein. Alex, great to see you as always. Caroline Leavitt, she just destroyed the media there, and I tell you what, they deserved a spray. What's your reaction to all of this?
Well, I always like it when Caroline Leavitt, just tells it like it is. And of course, the left-wing media has to paint a picture that Donald Trump isn't succeeding because, that's how they pay their bills. They had to create a narrative that he's not being successful. But, if we are calling balls and strikes, Donald Trump has made a lot of great victories. I think, everybody thought we were going to go into World War III with Iran, and that ended up not being World War III. So we all love what Donald Trump did there. But, at the same time, we don't want a war in Ukraine. Really, the Israel-Palestine, we want that conflict to end. So, it's a very complicated process, and we just need to give Donald Trump time. But CNN will not do that. They don't have the ability to give the president time to actually get his agenda done. They want it done right now. And that's why they're so disingenuous, because they know that Joe Biden couldn't do it, and they don't want Donald Trump to make Joe Biden look bad.
Yeah, well, let's talk about MSNBC, because the leftist network owned by NBC Universal is rebranding to MS Now, an acronym that stands for My Source for News, Opinion and the World. MSNBC is getting mocked for this online. You can't really take MSNBC seriously. What do you make of the rebrand? Is it going to help them at all? Is it an attempt to try and boost their ratings?
It's not going to help at all. And Rachel Maddow and Joe Scarborough are trying to say, oh, the new logo looks cool, but it doesn't have the legendary NBC peacock, which is, it gave them all the credibility that they had, which was none. And what's very intriguing about this situation, though, is that MSNBC changed to MS Now, but CNBC gets to stay CNBC. So it just shows you that MSNBC has been so unsuccessful that NBC wants to, disconnect any way possible with that failing ship, that sinking ship, because they're going to still let CNBC use the NBC moniker. So it shows you that one network is doing exponentially worse than the other.
Yeah. Well spotted. Look, Alex, bring us up to speed on what's happening in Texas. We know Texas Democrats who left the state over redistricting have returned to Austin, ending a 2-week standoff. So what happens from here?
Well, so all the representatives, though, right now, Governor Abbott has it where they have to have a DPS escort because they're not under arrest, but they kind of are under arrest. And so now you have a lot of politicians doing political theater and sleeping, in the Senate chambers. Or it's just what's going on is a lot of political theater, and the Democrats will do anything they can to not let this redistricting happen. And I actually kind of don't blame them a little bit, because they are going to lose a lot of spots. I can see why this is their Hail Mary. This is their last chance to try to stop it. But Governor Abbott is so determined to get this legislation passed. They might as well just, in my personal opinion, quit trying to fight it, get it done, and actually do their job as politicians that they were elected to do, instead of going and going to Illinois and trying to make it so they can't get any legislation passed, because there's legislation for, funds for flood victims of that horrible flood that we had in Hunt, Texas and Kerr, Texas, where, a lot of people passed away. And because these leftists are not going in to vote on it, those people can't get financial help. So it's ridiculous what they're doing. And but at the end of the day, I'm not surprised, because they really don't have a lot of leverage in this situation other than just not showing up to work. That's their only leverage, and they're going to do whatever they can to try to make it not get passed.
US President Donald Trump, he's pledged to issue an executive order to end the use of mail-in ballots and voting machines ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Now, Trump announced on Truth Social, I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots, and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, where they're very expensive and they are controversial voting machines. Alex, what's the reaction to this been?
I love it. If you want to vote in this country, you should have to vote in person at a voting booth. I mean, the ability to, use fraudulent votes, because in certain states you have ballot harvesting, where you can go to a nursing home and just basically fill out the ballots for these, elderly people. They don't even know who they're voting for. So if you love this country, then you should have enough energy to go to the polls on election day and go vote for the candidate that you want. But then you've also seen this narrative from the left, where they want to try to make it where you can vote on your cell phone, as if that would be credible at all. That there would be all kinds of hacking, and I can't even articulate how many holes there would be in that process if they were actually going to use our phones to let us vote. So I agree with Donald Trump. These mail-in ballots are the reason, in my opinion, that 2020 went in the not in a good direction for him, because legally they're allowed to go and harvest these ballots. So unless they stop that, mail-in ballots, because we go back to the stat in 2020, Joe Biden won all 50 states when it came to mail-in ballots, and Donald Trump won all 50 states, even the most liberal states, when it came to in-person voting. So you can see why it's very important. Yeah, that's why you can see it's very important for Donald Trump to make sure that if you want to vote for the president of the United States, you need to go do it in person on election day. So I love this. I hope it gets passed. And I really want to get rid of these mail-in ballots. It's just too much fraud surrounding it.
Finally, let's talk about the FBI. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has announced that she and her office have stripped security clearances from 37 current and former intelligence officials. Now, Gabbard accused them of politicising and manipulating intelligence. Also, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are bringing on Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey as an additional deputy director of the Bureau. What's your assessment of this? What's this going to do for the FBI?
Well, I don't think this hurts Kash at all. I think Kash actually probably needs some support because, being the, director of the FBI is going to be incredibly challenging. So I like that. I think that is basically necessary. And then when it comes to the security clearance, I think it was like 60 to 70, security experts said that the Hunter Biden tapes were fake and that was just fake news. So I don't think 37 is enough. I would like to see every single person that lied to the American public lose their security clearance, because that's why we have so many corrupt politicians. These people that have security clearance, they're hearing stuff and investing in companies because they have knowledge beforehand, before these deals happen. And that's why people like Nancy Pelosi is allowed to basically be a better stock trader than anybody else on Wall Street because she's talking to people that are in these meetings that have the security clearance. So it's really, if somebody's going to be disingenuous or dishonest, they need to lose their security clearance ASAP. So I'm happy with 37, but I'd like to see a lot more.
Alex Stein, it is so good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us.